All right, we're about 3 minutes in. We can go ahead and get started here. Jason, I'm going to kick off and get things going. Hopefully more people join us. We're
Sounds
going
good.
for the season here.
I've already started the recording.
Perfect. All right. Well, good afternoon, everybody who has had the chance to join already. We're going to do a quick intro of the team here, and then we'll jump into the actual demo itself. So let's just go through a quick glimpse at the agenda of what we're going to cover today. We're going to start with introductions. My name is Jose Pimentel. I'm a solutions architect for the Channel East, responsible for the technical enablement for our channel partners out in the field. And my counterpart, Jason, out in the West, I'll let him say a few things, and then we'll let Adrian introduce himself as well, and we'll kick things off.
Thank you, Jose. Yep, you can duplicate what Jose said for me. I'm here for the channel enablement in the West. Please feel free to drop me a line if you have questions, concerns, etc. We definitely have a great call lineup for next month as well, where we're going to feature a conversation with Splunk and a demo. So we're going to have the Splunk team join us for the same call next month, where we're going to demonstrate integration in the Splunk platform and CrowdStrike. So wanted to give you that teaser for next month. I'm going to turn it over to Adrian now.
Hey team, this is Adrian Diaz, another solutions architect. I've been on now for 2 months. My focus is the MSP and engagement partners, but also working with Jason and Jose with any efforts from everyone in the channel. So here to help.
Excellent. Thanks, gentlemen. So just a quick look at the agenda here. We're going to go through a platform overview of CrowdStrike and some of the changes, some of the newer things that we've added. There'll be a combination of slides and demo just to kind of break up the flow. And what we'll cover today is the Falcon Discover solution, Falcon Prevent solution, ended with the Falcon Insight solution. And then we'll talk a little bit about Overwatch and the intel that comes with the product and can be bundled with the product. And we'll leave some time at the end for some QA. Jason will be sort of moderating the chat. So if anybody has a question in the middle of any of this, feel free to throw it in there. And Jason, feel free to stop me at any point, and we can answer a question on the spot as well. But we'll try to leave some time at the very end for some QA so that people can ask some questions. All right, so let's go ahead and jump into it here. So this is a quick look at the actual Falcon platform, what some of you may have known the Falcon host platform to be as a single unit has now been broken up into a few different products on the left-hand side, and they're empowered by some of our services on the right, which is Diminished Hunting and the Threat Intel. I'm going to talk a little bit about each here from left to right, and then we'll jump into each individual components within the Falcon host platform one at a time and show a little bit about what the solution piece does. Starting from left to right, IT Hygiene, also known as the Falcon Discover solution, the newest addition to the product. This is essentially going to be able to give you a lay of the land as far as what's out there in the environment, from assets to application and usage. And we'll dig a little bit deeper when we get into the next slide into the solution as well. Just to the right of that, next-gen antivirus. We have had machine learning in the cloud for quite a while. We've just recently had an addition of machine learning on sensor, allowing us to provide protection on the machine when it is online as well as offline, and it also gives us a play at going after the AV replacement piece as well. And then our EDR solution, which has been in the product for a while, also known as Falcon Insight. This is what's recording all of the events, all the process execution, and really getting all the information off of a host that is running Falcon Host Sensor to be able to do some hunting, some digging into what's in the environment and what has executed in the environment from an application perspective or a process execution perspective. And just to the right of that, we have our managed hunting team, also known as Falcon Overwatch. So this is a team of hunters that is the force multiplier. This allows for the operationalization of perhaps a small SOC team for an organization that can't house or afford to operationalize a SOC on their own. They are the ones out there looking at the threat intelligence and all these alerts that happen in a system, and they're here to work for the customer itself. Last but not least is our threat intelligence that could be tied into the product, and it can be bundled or sold separately as a separate solution for anybody who's just looking for threat ingestion and wants some threat feeds to fit into their own solution. So the Falcon Host platform all operates under an open API solution. We've built what is known to be the Salesforce.com of security. We don't necessarily want to be the single pane of glass for the customer. We want to be able to easily integrate into their existing workflow, whether it be feeding information into a SIM or some type of orchestration tool to allow for an investigator to do their job. So let's go ahead and jump into each one of these one at a time. But before we do want to mention that the solution is, of course, as many of you know, is cloud delivered. So time to value is immediate here. There is no load on the customer side from a production perspective. They don't have to worry about providing additional resources like a server to run the management console, which provides some overhead and cost to the customer, and deployment of a single lightweight agent sensor that is deployed to a client within a couple of clicks and immediately starts to communicate with the Falcon Host platform. Breakdown of all the solutions that we're going to talk about. We're going to start with Falcon Discover. We'll move on to Falcon Prevent, finish off with Falcon Insight from a product perspective, and then talk about our services on the right, the managed hunting team, Falcon Overwatch, and then our intelligence to wrap up. So we're going to start with our newest addition to the software, which is the IT hygiene piece, also known as Falcon Discover. This is going to allow for an administrator to really get a full picture and a lay of the land of what's out in the environment, providing real-time visibility into a full asset inventory, the ability to monitor your privileged accounts. Any of your administrative accounts that have escalated privileges are fully monitored from an application usage perspective or a process execution perspective, allowing the administrator to see where these admin accounts are being used and how. And last but not least is the application usage. Helps a customer understand not only the applications that are out there, but also how they're being used and whether or not some are being used at all, allowing the customer to perhaps eliminate some licensing and reducing costs within the environment. And we're going to see a demonstration of what the Falcon Discover solution can provide to the customer here in a second. So let's go ahead and jump into a demo to kind of break up the slides a little bit. So this will be a quick look at the Falcon Discover solution for the IT hygiene. The very first thing we're going to look at here is account monitoring. So this allows an administrator to really get a full picture of what the admin accounts in the environment are doing or where they're being used from a host perspective, as well as a lot of other information like where is the last post an admin account has been seen, when were they last logged on, how long has it been since the password reset, which is also important to security itself, understanding how often these passwords are being cycled in and out from an administrative perspective. The video is playing. Come on. Only when you're recording. All right, apologize for the demo here. So that's a quick look at account monitoring and some of the information that you gather from the account monitoring perspective that I talked about a second ago, as well as how often these passwords have been reset or last cycled out through an environment. Some of these are very aged, as you can see on the right-hand side. So the next application we're going to look at here from Falcon Discover is asset inventory. So this really allows you to get a picture of what's out there from an asset perspective. And you're going to get two different views. On the left-hand side, you get a view of all the machines that we've covered that don't necessarily have a Falcon Host sensor listed on them. So we can only gather so much information. The IP address, the MAC address associated with the machine, and the adapter that the machine is running. On the right-hand side, as you can see, however, once the sensor is deployed, you're going to get a lot more information back from the host. Host name, the operating system they're running, agent version from a Falcon sensor perspective, the IP address, the MAC address, and whether they're part of a domain or a particular site within an environment as well. So a lot of great information here from a protection perspective when it comes to understanding whether you're covered fully from a host perspective and a security point of view. The next thing we're going to look at here is application inventory. So this gives you a full list of all the applications that were seen in an environment. Then we're going to pivot over application usage. In this case, we're going to do a search for a vendor, Microsoft, and we're going to get a full list of all the applications that were launched out of the vendor Microsoft, in this case, the operating system. It really gives you a quick look at what the users are out there executing or using, and understanding whether they're using production applications or they're just wasting time on other type of applications that they shouldn't be on. So you get the application information, the product name, the version, when it was last seen or used, and what host that actual application was used at. The next piece here is going to be, again, application usage, but from a different perspective. In this case, we're going to do a search against a particular host name, quickly allowing you to see the applications that we used under a particular host over a certain period of time. You can see all of the vendor names, product names, and software versions down on the bottom right there. This has a similar feel, but in this case, we're actually doing an application usage report based on a particular user, an admin, for example, or someone who has privileged account escalations, and get an understanding of how they're using these things. So that's IT hygiene, and just a quick look at what IT hygiene is bringing to the table or helping the customer fix from a business value perspective. As we saw from the demo, you get a quick look at all of the applications that are out there that are used or perhaps not being used, allowing the customer to reduce some licensing costs. You optimize operation by getting an understanding of what the users are out there doing. Are they using productivity applications, or are they using applications that should have been used in an environment? Quickly identify protected systems from unprotected systems, so you get a feel for what else needs to be covered in an environment from a security perspective, and then fully understand what the application usage, instead of, you can also satisfy some compliance requirements behind it. So that's a quick look at IT hygiene and some of the business values that it brings to the table and what it helps the customer fix. The next thing that we're going to move to here is the Falcon Prevent piece, or Next Gen AV, our go at fully replacing these traditional AV vendors. Just to backtrack here, I'm going to take a step back and talk about IT hygiene for those of you who are familiar with something similar to this. But other vendors out there like Cylance can't provide that kind of visibility. The only other vendor that I can think of that would come to mind would be Tanium. So this is kind of our go at Tanium as well, and getting an edge against Cylance from a technology perspective. So back into the Next Gen AV Falcon Prevent piece here. You all know we've had machine learning in the cloud for quite a while. We can block known bads, hashes, IOCs, domains, bad IPs. We could also block the unknown bad using machine learning algorithms and what we call IOAs, or indicators of attack. The IOAs are really looking at process behavior execution rather than just a hash or a known bad. For example, I have a breakdown of an IOA, another slide here to help break down and get an understanding of what an IOA is, but it's really looking at just process execution behavior that tends to be malicious. And then last but not least, at the bottom right is the ability for us to look at exploit mitigation, really take a look at all of your productivity apps like your Microsoft Outlook, your Words, and get an understanding of whether there's an exploit that they currently have that is being taken advantage of, similar to Microsoft Emmet type of solution. The difference being here is that we're doing the same type of exploit mitigation for your non-Microsoft related applications like your Adobe's, your Java, your Flash, and that's something that Emmet couldn't cover on the back end. So here's a breakdown of that IOA that I talked about. Really, this is looking at the process execution behavior, and all of these different points you see is a different type of behavior. This is a breakdown of a simple IOA that would relate to some type of ransomware type of attack. When the infection first happens, the process obviously has to execute on the system. Once it does that, it enumerates the file system and takes a look at all the information that they can take advantage of and encrypt. This next step after that is it's going to start looking at your shadow copies to be able to delete any information that you may have backed up that you're going to be able to recover from. And last but not least, it takes an encryption call and starts to encrypt the data. All of these points here are behavioral points that an IOA would be able to terminate at any point in time, not allowing the ransomware to perhaps enumerate the file system or go into your shadow copy and start deleting backups. It would terminate that type of process execution and stop the infection from happening. All this information, of course, is under our great database called Threat Graph. This is really where all of the information is set up and all of the metadata that we're collecting from all of our customers deployed around the world. We're in 176 different countries. We collect over 30 billion events a day. Actually, most recently, I think we're up to 40 billion events a day, which is astronomical. But this really helps you do a search against a database that is not on site, so you're not taking the hit. And it gives you 5-second searches, the ability to search in real time as well as retrospective against any information that a customer has perhaps gathered, like some bad known hashes, and you want to determine whether or not there has been a host in the environment that has executed this. It helps you find the knowns and unknowns that may have perhaps been missed. It helps with detection, prevention, forensics, and of course, it helps with hunting as well. Do we have any questions? I thought I saw somebody raise their hands. Jason, did you see anything come up in the chat?
That was me testing the raising of the hand button. Sorry about that.
Gotcha. All right, so let's go ahead and jump in and take a quick look at our Falcon Prevent solution. In this demo, we're going to demonstrate machine learning in the cloud, and then we're going to make a quick change to the actual victim machine to display machine learning on sensor and prevention when perhaps a machine is no longer connected to the internet or off the network.
Actually, we do have a question from Yuri. So, Yuri,
sure.
I wanted to see if we can let Yuri talk.
You might have to unmute him somehow. But...
Yeah, trying. I think you have to do that if you don't mind going into the participants on your side and seeing if you can unmute.
No, I can just lower his hand or remove him.
I see. Yuri, can you ask your question in the Q&A box?
And I'll continue with the demo here so we don't have such a long pause, Jason,
Yep.
and then you can interrupt me at any point.
Yep. Sorry about that.
No worries. Let's go ahead and jump into the Falcon Prevent next generation AV here. In the first example, we're going to do an execution of a piece of malware that's already been downloaded. The hash is going to be executed by command prompt. But in this case, the machine is connected to the internet, so machine learning in the cloud actually took that detection decision and prevention decision. So we saw access denied. We're going to jump into our Falcon host solution and quickly see that process execution in the Explorer tree here, showing us the detection. In addition to that, we're also going to look at our AV detections. In this case, we already knew that it was a known hash. We have a direct integration into VirusTotal. So these are all the different vendors that reported that hash. So machine learning made a decision based on an existing IOC or a known hash that was already reported. The next thing we're going to do here is a couple different things to kind of demonstrate or display machine learning on the sensor. The first thing we're going to do is disable the network adapter. This way, the machine is no longer connected to the internet, simulating perhaps a laptop that's on the move and doesn't have access to machine learning on the cloud. So we're going to disable the network adapter. We're going to take it also one step further. Since we know that there was a known hash, we're going to open up a hex editor. We're going to mutate the hash by a single octet. This changes the hash of the malware, but it doesn't necessarily change the behavior. So we're still going to get hits based on machine learning with the malware behavior that has not actually changed. This also eliminates the fact that it's not querying just the VirusTotal information that's already cached there. So we're going to mutate the hash by a single octet. And then we're going to execute the same samples in two different forms. So we get a little bit of a bigger process tree. The first way we're going to execute it is by Windows Explorer. We can quickly see the access denied window here. So prevention has happened. And then we're going to execute the same hash from within the command prompt, just as we saw before. Here's our access denied call. And then the other thing we're going to do here is we're going to re-enable the network adapter because all of the prevention detections that have happened are cached on the system. So the second the system does come back online, all of that detection information is going to get fed up to the Falcon host management console for the administrator to be able to do their investigation. So enable the network adapter, jump over to Falcon host once again, and we can see our process tree. the two different types of detection that I launched. And in addition to that, if we move over to our right-hand side, go down to our AV hits as we saw before. In this case, we have 0 hits because we mutated the hash. So the virus total hash that was reported by all the other traditional AV vendors is no longer in play here. So this is how an adversary can quickly bypass your traditional AV vendor. It's by simply just mutating the hash and using the same piece of malware. And then your traditional AV vendor would have to get a new signature, get it down to the endpoints before they could do anything about it. So that's a quick look at Falcon Prevent. We saw machine learning in the cloud, and then we saw the same exact type of protection when the machine is actually offline, providing full prevention and detection for a customer in either scenario. Jason, did you happen to get that question in the chat by any chance?
It was no question. They said no question.
Got it. All right. So we saw the demo. So we saw the many different things that the Falcon Prevent can result for the customer and can help fix. The business value points are right on our right-hand side here. We saw it protect against known as well as unknown by mutating simply the hash value, which brings up the point of being able to protect against zero-day attacks. These threat actors out there are just going to rinse, reuse, repeat type of approach when it comes to malware. So they like sell malware to each other, just change some of the hash code, but malware behavior is still the same. So protecting against those 0 days is definitely eliminated. We saw a breakdown of an IOA, so we can eliminate ransomware with not only known IOCs, machine learning, but also behavioral patterns behind that. No signature updates. This is huge when it comes to the sensor itself. All this eliminates the bloat on the agent, keeping it very, very low. The agent itself takes up about 30 megs on disk, uses 10 megs of memory, and CPU utilization tends to stay between 0 and 2% because we are eliminating that hit from the sensor by using machine learning and behavior patterns. So full protection, even when offline, is also one of the things we saw from within the demo here. So that's a quick look at Falcon Prevent. We'll jump into the next piece, which is our EDR. Oh, we got to talk about a couple other things. So with our machine learning on sensor, we have been AV certified by Microsoft, a couple other vendors. We're fully involved in the AV comparative test. MTOS, VirusTotals, one of our partners we have a direct integration with, which helps us meet some of the other compliances as well, like PCI, HIPAA, and FFIEC. So the last thing we're going to do here is look at our EDR components, or the Falcon Insights, and then we'll finish off with the Overwatch team and the Intel. So the EDR is our recording component. It's our DVR, if you will. It's going to monitor and record every process execution right after you use a login. And you can see that from the process trees we've been looking at. This really gives you the ability to have some real-time and historical search against data. And once again, the data that you're searching is in the cloud. It's no longer an on-site database like a SQL or something that may be locally stored on a server. Everything is recorded, as I mentioned, directly from logon, every process execution and everything that the user executes. Even while offline, all of that information is being cached. With an EDR solution, this really gives the administrator or responder inside of an organization the ability to be able to quickly respond to a threat, as well as being able to network contain a host so that they can continue their investigation and start their remediation process from a malware perspective. Eliminates the approach of just hitting the nuke button, right? Oh, there was a piece of malware, may as well just reimage that machine. But then you're getting rid of all the forensic evidence, and the administrator never really gets an understanding of what, when, where, or why that piece of malware came in. With an EDR component, this really allows you to get that full visibility. And in addition to that, you have the ability to do your own threat hunting. You can take your own hashes or bad known domains, search against your entire environment within seconds because you're searching against a cloud database, and really get a full understanding of whether you should be looking at endpoints that perhaps have executed a bad known hash or have visited some domains that they shouldn't be visiting. We're going to see a little bit of that once we jump into the demo here of the Falcon Insight, and then I'll pivot to the next point. So let's go ahead and take a look at a quick look at the Falcon Insight solution. Before I jump into that, just want to make sure there's no questions. Does not appear to be okay. All right, so during this demo, we're going to do two different things. The very first thing we're going to do is do a bulk domain search. We're going to gather some information as far as malicious domains from some websites that have malware samples, malware code, that sort of information. To gather this information from the page, what we're going to do is use our browser API plugin called CrowdStrike. This is going to help us scan the page for indicators and get our list of domains that we want to look for in an environment. CrowdStrike gives us the results. We're going to copy all of the information, bring it back to our Falcon host platform, and dump it all in at the same time so we can search against multiple domains over a certain period of time. This immediately brings us back the results of the hosts that have hit one of those domains you were doing the search for. You get the host name information, when it was first looked at, when it was last seen, last check date, etc. The next search we're going to do here is bulk hash. So this is, once again, for somebody who wants to look at an environment for a hash that they got a window of, a new thread is out there. In this case, we're going to pull it off of a web page that has known malware on it. We're going to use CrowdStrike to pull the hash information, quickly dump that hash info into our search, do it for a 30-day period, and the results immediately come back letting you know that the hash has been seen. Here's the file name, here's the SHA, here's the MD5, here's the host that executed it, first seen, last seen. It also gives the ability for the administrator to take action from within this first screen and be able to network contain that machine that has been infected. Not only to continue the investigation, but perhaps also stop the spreading of anything that may potentially use a drive-by or try to reach out to the network to put these bad hashes within the environment. So that's a quick look at Falcon Insight. There's a couple other searches that can be done there. We do have a backend GUI there that's very similar to Splunk. Splunk is built into the product. So you can do your own searches, your own custom queries against any of the data. The important thing to note here is the ability to search quickly, the ability to scale to a lot of data, the ability to not have to have additional resources come about from a customer perspective. They don't have to have a server that has this database that they want to search against. And the searches are within 5 seconds. It's from the demo here. So we have the ability to search across the entire environment very, very quickly. It also helps you to prevent against silent failure. This means if an infection has already hit a system and it has been compromised, we're still recording every other event that happened after that. We're not 100%. We don't claim to be, and there's any other vendor. The ability to have a full picture and history behind what happened after that infection really helps against preventing that silent failure. Just to take another dig here, this is something that one of our competitors, Silence, does not provide. They are strictly focused on the prevention. And it's really beyond that, and it's about a lot more than just prevention. You need to be able to have the history and the forensic capability to get an understanding as to why, how that machine got infected, why, and what else were they using during that time that needs to be taken care of from an administrative perspective. It helps you reduce the time to remediation as well as the time to response, because you have the full history and you know what you're looking for and what you have to eliminate. And it eliminates hardware storage costs. Scalability is key here. We can scale to very large enterprises very, very well. Just taking another twist at another vendor here, Carbon Black is a vendor that does a little bit of everything that we do, but they're doing this with a different agent each time, and it's also the overhead cost of having to have on-premise type solutions to manage it. From a scalability perspective, we can handle the very large enterprises without any additional cost. Carbon Black, for example, can only handle 5,000 nodes before you have to have more additional costs on the server edge to be able to manage and host a database as well as a management console for those additional endpoints that come into play into an environment. All right, two more pieces here. Managed hunting, or our Falcon Overwatch team. They're the ones looking at all of the alerts. They're the ones prioritizing these alerts. They help eliminate alert fatigue for those environments that have a small IT staff and perhaps can't spend the time to do this type of work, hunting, alerting, prioritizing, and responding. They're the force multiplier. They help bring a lot more leverage to a team that perhaps doesn't have this kind of capability, and they help you stop the mega breach, because these guys are in there looking at things that are important and not just monitoring red or green lights and telling you there was an alert and an infection. They're going to look at behaviors and patterns and whether or not a threat actor is in there and what they're doing, and then they're going to take that information, put it into a report, provide it to the client, and also provide them guidance on the approach that they should take to be able to eliminate this threat actor out of the environment. There's two different tiers here. First tier, they're going to just provide reports and tell you the actions. Second tier, the Overwatch team can even take action for the customer if it happens to be, during non-production hours on a Saturday or Sunday when the actual customer can't respond. The Overwatch team can take that immediate action and stop the bleeding, if you will. So what is some of the business value? What's the Falcon Overwatch team bringing to the table for a customer? They can stop the mega breach, right? They're going to look at a lot more than just red and light type of monitoring. They're the force multiplier. They bring that additional power to an environment that perhaps can't, manage or afford to have a team of this caliber. Community immunity, so they're looking at all different alerts, all different threats throughout the world, not just in a single environment. And as soon as something bad is discovered, everybody takes advantage of that same intel at the same time. And we reduce alert fatigue by eliminating that from the customer side and really focus on what matters, not just malware infections, but is there reconnaissance happening? Is there lateral movement? Is there a threat actor there planning to steal, perpetual information, whether it be IP or PCI, whatever type of information they're looking for. Last but not least, threat intelligence, Falcon Intel. We have some of the best intel out there. They provide full analysis reports. They can be used just strictly for threat feeds. Like I mentioned, this can be sold as a separate product to the solution, and it can also be bundled with anything that we have. Get expert access and really threat data search across the entire environment. The Intel team really provides a lot of information, not only from an adversary perspective, but what that adversary tends to target, what the organization is that they tend to target, what kind of applications they're going to weaponize to their advantage that customers using, any productivity apps, your Adobes, your Words, your Outlooks. That type of information is all of the threat intelligence report. I'm actually going to make a quick pivot here before I do finish these slides and just jump into the Falcon host platform so we can take a quick look at our intelligence information.
Hey, we do have. Oh, what? Nope, I thought we had a question. We do not.
All right, 1 second here, just logging into my system. It has a timeout of a short period. All right. So really what I wanted to do here is give you guys a little bit of a better look into our intelligence and the type of information that the intelligence has behind it. All threat actors have their own sort of name. We separate these names and animals based on geographical location. Your hound spider would be Russian Federation. For those of you who are familiar with the DC hack, your fancy bear and your cozy bears, those are also Russian. Pandas would be China, etc. But if you dig into one of these intelligence report, here's a quick look at all the information that the customer is going to be able to take advantage of that I mentioned, right? What the threat actor name is, where the origins is, last known activity, what some of the other vendors out there may be calling them, and a quick look at the entire kill chain of how these people are are working right, whether they use ransomware, whether they weaponize regular applications. Are they doing this just to monetize? Do they strictly use ransomware to just take advantage of people and get Bitcoins essentially? And then you get full reports down here by our threat intelligence teams that are being fed as well, not just the basic information on the right-hand side. So there is two different levels of intelligence that come into play here. Your basic intel subscription will give you the quick actor report as well as the kill chain. But some of these alerts and full reports would not be available unless you went to the higher level of intel subscription. Going to jump back into the deck here. All right, so just to cap off the intelligence piece, what's the business value? We do a lot of intelligence from our side, and all the other intelligence that we gather from third-party vendors that is all curated, helps you predict that attack, prioritize and response, alert context, C-level type of reporting with the full reports of the threat actors that may be inside of an organization and why they're there and what their objectives are, and really helps you drive security automation from an intelligence perspective. I know that this was a lot of information for you guys, so I'm going to just recap what we've covered from a solution perspective, and I'll talk a little bit about how these can be essentially purchased. They can be bundled or they can be bought separately. So we talked about IT hygiene, which is our Falcon Discover piece, really getting an understanding and a lay of the land of what's out there from an application perspective, what's being utilized, not utilized, application monitoring, allowing you to monitor those accounts with escalated privileges, where they're being used, how, what they're executing, etc. Falcon Prevents, we talked about the next Gen AV piece, machine learning on sensor, and then we demonstrated machine learning in the cloud as well. The machine learning on sensor provides us the ability to have that full AV replacement play, as well as providing protection to a host even when they're offline, which is one of the challenges that we had in the past. And that was actually one of the things that sort of hurt us a little bit when competing against Cylance. Cylance had a machine learning on sensor for a while. Now we've kind of taken out that positive from Cylance and matched it. That's not really an upsell for them anymore. We covered Insight, which is the EDR piece. EDR has been in the solution for quite a while, but this really gives the administrator to go beyond just the alerting and malware infection detection. Really helps them investigate, hunt, dig into a particular machine, get the full forensics behind it, and get an understanding as to how the infection got in, what they were using, and why within an environment. And then last but not least, we covered the Falcon Overwatch team, the force multiplier, the team that's there to help the customer eliminate that alert fatigue, that SOC that they perhaps cannot operationalize or staff. And then our intelligence piece, which is the last thing we covered. So the products themselves can be bundled into suites and can also be bought separately. Prevent can be sold separately, or it can be bundled with Insight, which is our EDR bundle. And then we have a bundle called EPP, which includes all three of the products on the left. The Falcon Overwatch and the intelligence are two separate products that can be coupled on top of your other solutions on the left, the products. So Prevent and Insight can be matched together with the Overwatch team to get full visibility and somebody who's really going to be looking out for the customer or the bad guys that are going to be trying to infiltrate the environment. Prevent is there to be sold separately as well for somebody who's just looking strictly for prevention and AD replacement of any of those traditional vendors that are out there. Prevent can be sold separately, and it helps with the pricing point as well. And for those smaller organizations that perhaps are just focused on Prevent and don't really have the staff or manpower to go full EDR and do the investigation and hunting on their own as well. And as I mentioned before, all of this is driven by an open API. We don't want to be a single pane of glass. We want to be able to fit into the organization's existing workflow without disrupting that type of behavior within an organization. So if they tend to just strictly work off the SIM, we can quickly integrate into a SIM with a streaming API, get all the information over there so that the analysts can continue to work as they did before with additional information on the back end from us. And then last but not least, I'm going to finish it off with our technology partner ecosystem and some of the security partners that we have technology alliance and partnerships with. From the analytics perspective, your typical SIMs, your Splunk, your Logarithm, CrowdStrike, threat intelligence platforms such as Anomaly, Threat Connect. We actually did an integration piece with them a couple of months ago. And then from an infrastructure perspective, all of our stuff runs in AWS. We have, good relationship with Amazon, of course. Orchestration tools, Demisto is a great orchestration tool. Phantom, we have a great partnership with. And next month, just to kind of cap it off, we are going to do a technology partner integration call, and we are going to have discussion and around the integration with the CrowdStrike platform and Splunk. So tune in with us next month for that type of solution. That is the last piece from my part. We still have about 15 minutes, so I did want to hopefully open it up for some QA, unless there's some questions that have already come in, Jason, that we could run through.
Definitely have had a couple questions come in. So somebody asked Alejandro Aguida, is the only supported platform Windows or Mac or Linux? Do you want to handle that one?
Yeah, good question. So we do support the whole gamut as far as operating systems is concerned. Fully cover Windows, cover Mac. Most recently, we've added prevention on Mac. And on the Linux end is strictly a EDR play, so we're just looking at all the process execution and providing full visibility as to what's happening within the Linux machine. There is no prevention there yet, but it's in the works. But we do fully support Windows as well as Mac now.
The next question would be could you describe your integration with Palo Alto, especially given that they're an endpoint solution that competes somewhat? Ron, I don't know if we currently have a formal actual integration with Palo Alto. Certainly, if Palo Alto wanted to use some security-defined networking technique, like adding our API Intel stream into like a known bad blocked firewall rule, that's probably possible. But certainly I haven't seen that deployed often, and et cetera. So really, I don't see us do much integration with Palo Alto unless Adrian or Jose knows something different.
I don't have any other information besides what you provided.
Okay.
Hey, I just happen to have Evan Burns in front of me, and he says we have a integration with what Palo Alto uses, MindMeld. It's open source, and it's for Intel ingestion, pulling of IOCs. Okay.
So certainly in the same vein that I mentioned earlier, but it definitely intelligence related. Ron, does that answer your question on the Palo Alto Networks component? Okay, very good.
Perfect.
Perfect. And then back to Alejandro Guida, versions of Mac. I think we're up to the current Sierra release. Linux kernels, if you have access to our NFR system, under the support documentation, there is all of our Linux support information. I believe we have significant changes coming to our Linux support. I think right now Jose is going to bring up the actual support information, but if Jose can actually click on Linux.
Yes, where's my...
Yep.
Admin guide, where is it?
Yep, just a little bit further up. I can see the mouse, just Falcon sensor deployment guide. That'll, yep, perfect. That'll show us the Linux. Yep, those are the versions we support currently, Alejandro. We can put those in the chat for you. But we are currently working on some changes to our Linux deployment that moves the service out of user space into kernel space, which will allow more operating system support. We're definitely looking toward some support with the Amazon Linux deployment. Lots of customers asking about that. So if you get a chance to come back into this portal and take a look in the next couple of weeks, you might see some changes. Actually, I should say the next couple of months. Great. Glad to be able to help answer your question. And there's your currently supported Mac versions. Hi, Jenny. Do you have Jenny's question? Do you have the functionality to kill processes or ban a hash. We certainly could do bulk hash ingestion. So if you had a text file full of several hashes, you can ingest them via the, I think we're going to bring this up for you now. Yep, it's under prevention policies, prevention hashes from that simple interface. There's an upload button in the upper right-hand corner that actually takes the file in. During the upload process, you would it would ask you how you want to utilize the hashes. Do you want to always block? Do you want to always allow it, etc.? I don't know if you have an example file, but we can certainly show you that. We currently don't have any capacity to kill processes with the client. I don't know if Jose or Adrian knows if that's on the roadmap, or if you want to ask Evan next to you, Adrian. Also, could you send us the URLs for the EDR APIs? It's online. Yep.
It's in the roadmap. Evan tells me.
Okay, it's in the roadmap for the kill processes component, and the API EDR API information is all under the support documents. And on the far right-hand side of the page, you'll see all of our API information. There's Intel API, and of course the threat graph and the streaming and the query API. Of course, you would need to have an Intel subscription to use the Intel Actors API, but you certainly could use an NFR account for the query API, the streaming API, or the threat graph API, but you'd have to be a manager of the account and be able to configure that API key and ID. I don't know if you want to just flash on the left-hand side to show them where the API key information is, Jose. Yep, right there. About Big OS updates with the agent installed on the machine, like a Windows install as a service pack. Is there any present precaution that you need to take in mind? We're on top of those things, but it also means that your clients and your support teams need to be looking at our release notes as they're delivered to you via email as alerts and in the UI. So if Jose brings up the support documents, yes, we are constantly releasing. It's a little, yep, the docs there. Or not the docs, actually the main support news page there, Jose, I'm sorry.
Oh, they was the news feed, okay.
Yep, so this shows all of the current Falcon release notes, and we'll definitely be publishing release notes if we require a change related to a service pack or a Patch Tuesday release. So certainly, if you see something in here, I highly recommend that you read it. Does that answer that component of the question, Alejandra? Awesome. Yep, so whom should I contact if I have questions about the REST APIs? Jenny, you could certainly send those questions through us. We have direct access to Hamilton Yang, who is the product manager for the APIs, as well as Evan is an absolute expert. He wrote our application orchestrator, so please feel free to send those to jason.teplitz@crowdstrike.com or jose.pimentel@crowdstrike.com. Do you have those email addresses, or would you like me to put those into the system window?
I'd say drop them in the chat just so that people have them.
Yep. Sounds good. Doing that now. Okay, and okay, that's everybody? I think we got all the questions, unless somebody says I missed something. But certainly would love to help. Oh, we see somebody. Oh, or only with Splunk. Let me see this. Is available integration with HP ArcSight. We can integrate with any SIM platform. If you don't mind, Jose, shifting over to the support downloads page and showing them the SIM connector download. The SIM connector download allows you to install an RPM on a Linux host that will, you basically plug your API ID and key into it. You tell it what format you want the data in, syslog, ceph, and then you give it the IP address of your server. So any implementation of ceph or syslog or JSON SIM could take in that feed via the SIM connector. On Splunk specifically, they've written a direct integration via API. So if they have Splunk TA, somebody might utilize that. But we highly recommend using our SIM connector, or if you want to break out Python, you're certainly, can create your own Python-based infrastructure. Yeah, definitely possible. With Splunk, it's definitely there. HP ArcSight, 100%. You should be able to do something with the SIM connector. If you have any problems getting that SIM connector set up, let me know. Alejandro, happy to help. It's really simple. It's just the RPM-I, get it installed, and then adjust a configuration file. Okay. Well, no more questions today, anybody? Well, this was a really great session. We really appreciate everybody taking the time to participate today. Like I mentioned earlier in the call, we will have a terrific. No worries about that, Alejandro. We definitely would love everybody to tune in for the call next month that we're going to have Splunk as a guest, actually, and we're going to show an integration with the Splunk platform, and we're going to have some Splunk sales engineering and a product management people on the call to answer questions. So be looking for that invite for next month, and we look forward to having you guys. Jose, you want to wrap it up with a goodbye?
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for all the questions. Like Jason said, please join us next month to get a good look at the integration piece between Splunk. I saw some Splunk questions come up, so hopefully you join us. And thanks once again, everybody, for joining, and have a great rest of your day.
Okay. End the recording now. I look forward to working with you guys all in the future. Take care.